I'm going to go ahead and get started to make sure we can cover everything. I actually have a fairly substantial amount of content I want to cover today, so I'll go ahead and get going. For those of you who don't know, I'm Justin Bellamy, and I'm the Director of Strategy at JB Media Group, which is a digital marketing agency in Asheville, North Carolina. And about 1/3 of our work is with tourism organizations, mostly with small destination marketing organizations, CVBs, counties, and a couple of regional state and governmental organizations. And then we also work with a handful of attractions, such as bed and breakfasts, inns, resorts, things of that nature. We've been doing this work for about 7 years as a company, and I've been doing it digital marketing, SEO, including in the hospitality and tourism space, for over 15 years. I also co-founded the JB Media Institute, which is an online marketing program. We started that up in 2013 and made it a separate business in 2016. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of our upcoming programs at the end. We have a couple things coming up soon related to tourism within that company. But today, this presentation is based entirely on a free ebook that I recently wrote. It hasn't really been distributed yet, but everyone who's on the call and everyone who registered will get a copy of it. And it covers 5 areas. There's going to be branding, content development, including research, strategy, and creation, content distribution, including social media, and digital advertising, and then finally partnership marketing. So in a 1-hour webinar, we obviously can't cover super detailed information about each of these areas, but I wanted to just share a basic overview as it relates to small market tourism organizations. And then you'll get a free ebook afterwards, which has more information. It's about 30 pages long and has separate sections for each of these topics. And then we're also launching an online course with separate video classes for each of these sections, which will have an offer going out soon for a very low cost to get started, likely as low as $1 for the first month, and then going up after that for about a 3-month program. So this is all based on that information, but I'm going to try to share as much as I can within the context of this 1-hour webinar today. So I want to start with branding, and here are some of the things we'll cover. One is leading with your primary strength. Another is how to get started on the branding process. Then we'll talk about examples of small market tourism brands, and then some branding process tips from Chris Cavanaugh. And for those of you who don't know, Chris Cavanaugh is the founder of Magellan Strategy Group here in Asheville, North Carolina. He's also the former director of marketing, or VP of marketing, at the Biltmore Estate. He was there for 10 years in the 90s and early 2000s before starting his consulting business. So he has a lot of experience working, and since leaving Biltmore, he has consulted with probably over 100 communities and tourism organizations from all over the East Coast, from as far north as Pennsylvania, Ohio, and maybe farther into Florida and Georgia, everywhere in between. And we partnered with him on a number of programs. So I interviewed him several times for this webinar and the ebook that goes with it. So one of the most important things for small market tourism destinations is to focus on your strengths. So you have to know your strengths in order to be able to focus on them. So some of the common strengths that small markets can have, one would be food and drink, food and beer, wine, or bourbon. Those can be, if this is actually a true strength of your area, then it could be potentially the forefront of your brand. Another thing would be outdoor activities. Then there would be arts, either the visual arts or the performing arts. Next could be sports and athletics. I know we did some work last year with Owensboro, Kentucky, and they had a couple areas. They had bourbon as one, they had bluegrass as one, which would be under the arts, and then they had sports and athletics. So within different campaigns, they put different strengths at the forefront because they were targeting different target audiences. They were targeting bourbon enthusiasts, bluegrass enthusiasts, and they had a lot of youth sports and sporting tournaments and events. They're trying to recruit those for the parents, overnight stays for the parents coming for those type of events. Other specific industries can be a regional focus, and water is often a focus. So if you have a lake an ocean or a river, that can be a big part of your attraction, why people would want to come and visit your area. So that might be the centerpiece of your brand. So in Asheville, we have a lot of strengths, but I think food and beer are our two most popular, probably alongside the outdoors. So Asheville, the Asheville CVB many years ago created the Foodtopia sub-brand. Actually, for a long time, had their own Foodtopia website, did their own Foodtopia style advertising campaigns, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. In fact, just this week they announced a new massive food festival next summer, which will be one of the biggest tourism grant-funded events in Asheville, and it's, there's a lot of excitement already, and it just was announced this week. So that's an example of how you could use a highlighted strength as part of your brand and create even a sub-brand or an overall brand campaign, or even your overall branding for the region around one specific topic. So how to get started with the branding process? You need to start by asking your internal team 3 main questions. One is, who's the audience for this effort? Is this just primarily to create and guide your own internal efforts? Is this to get buy-in from your board or from local officials? Is this to get buy-in from your partners or your regional community? So you have to understand who you're trying to create this branding effort for. What are your objectives that provide the foundation for the process, and who needs to be involved? You can't really do a branding process unless you know these 3 things. So these should be answered first, and then that'll help guide you into just deciding what kind of outside support you might need, how long it will take, how much money should be invested, things of that nature. So some examples. I don't have time to go into each one, so there's links, and I'll provide a little bit of background on each one just quickly, and then you can follow up by clicking on the links in the PDF or reading the ebook. You'll be able to read more details. These all came from Chris Cavanaugh, who I already mentioned earlier, but one of them is Mount Airy. Mount Airy, North Carolina, is home of Mayberry, which is the town that was the centerpiece of the Andy Griffith Show. And so the fact that the same Main Street that was in the Andy Griffith Show, which many people, especially baby boomers, but many people remember that show, whether it's the original or the reruns, they might want to come see that. They want us to come see the actual locations where the police station was, where the old cars that were in the chute are still have them preserved, and other things that are memorable from that show are still there, and that's the primary draw of the area. So they haven't tried to necessarily evolve that; they just utilize that, and that is something that may eventually, fade, but currently is working very well for them. The next, not sure what happened there. Hold on, something just jumped off. 1 second. Let me get back to where I was. Actually, I clicked the link in one of those. Sorry about that, folks. Got a little sidetracked there, but should be back online just a second. So I'll try not to click on the links there. Those are for you guys to use later. So the next one is these 3 towns, Franklin, Tennessee, Gaston, North Carolina, and Carrabba's County, North Carolina. All 3 of these are brands that have successfully differentiated themselves from nearby larger areas, larger competitors. So Franklin is a suburb of Nashville. Obviously, Nashville is huge. Gaston is near Charlotte, and Carrabba's is also on the other side of Charlotte. So these counties have to really stand out in order to get tourism, because they're right beside massive cities with huge budgets, with professional sports teams, with the country music capital of the East Coast, things that make them obviously popular destinations, places to move. So they're facing sprawl, they're facing competition for all their tourists going to a larger city to choose as their home base. So they have to stand out, they have to differentiate themselves. And if you look at the websites or read the ebook, you'll see a little bit about what they've done to do that. And then the last one is Abingdon, Virginia. It's just a very strong small market tourism destination that's done a good job to differentiate itself. So This is just one example. I didn't want to take too much time going into each one. I'm not necessarily that knowledgeable about them. This is from Chris again, my partner on this whole project. So this is the section that he helped me with, this one section, the branding section. So this website, I like the look of this website because it utilizes actual photography from visitors and to make up the homepage. And so it looks very dynamic and interesting and humanizing. I'm sure they're curating these to choose ones that are look good. We have actually do something similar for one of our clients for the Smoky Mountain Host, which is a tourism region. Western North Carolina's about 13 or 14 counties in the far west of the state. They have a regional tourism organization, and we do their website, and their homepage has something similar on it. So we find this to be a useful way to engage visitors and have them feel like they're part of the process, but also creating a really dynamic and interesting website. You can do this through plugins or custom coding to make it load approved images with a certain hashtag, and you can put those hashtags out in signage, email, social media campaigns to get people to utilize them to get the content in. So Chris gave me a couple branding tips to share. One is to be brave and bold in everything that you do. You're not going to stand out if you don't differentiate yourself. So another thing is set yourself apart in the sea of the sameness that we have. This is mostly relevant for the Southeast because there are a lot of communities that are relatively similar, so they have to do something different to stand out. And then create an aspirational brand that allows you to develop future assets and experiences that support this. And the Foodtopia would be a good example in Asheville. There's been all these, we recruited great chefs, and then this next big festival is going to be actually geared towards recruiting additional chefs into the area to try to even further improve that asset we have. And then never forget who your audience is. For example, the Mayberry example. If you already know you have an asset that may seem outdated, but if you know everyone wants to see it, then that could be your centerpiece, and you can try to utilize that as long as it works. Maybe that's enough to keep your tourism community strong. So that's it for the branding section of the presentation. Keeping right along, I want to make sure we get through everything, so I'm going to move right into the content section, and we're going to cover keyword research, website architecture, writing, ghost blogging, which actually is a type of writing, and then a little bit about pacing and frequency. Lastly, a little bit about the challenges and opportunities that events pose within content development for websites and digital marketing. So keyword research, for those of you who don't know, keyword research is the process of trying to figure out how often people look for things online. And there are a variety of tools which we teach within our training programs on how to do keyword research. The most popular one is the Google Keyword Planner, which actually tells you approximately how many people search for different words each month, and also the seasonality of those searches. And then you can use that to inform what kind of pages you write, which how you title pages, and how you organize your content on your website. So for tourism organizations, there are some common keyword categories. We've been doing keyword research for tourism for at least, I have been doing it for probably 10 years now. So I've done dozens of keyword research projects and have reviewed and given feedback to my staff on just as many additional ones. There's probably 20 or 30 over the last few years. But here's some things that you want to look out for. The holidays, how often people are looking for the holiday keywords in association with your regional keywords. So for instance, it'd be like Asheville 4th of July or Asheville Labor Day events or something like that. It would be what those kind of keywords. Nearby towns, so you want to make sure you are capitalizing. If you're like, for instance, Buncombe County has chosen to brand itself as Asheville because it's better known. In some places, the county might be better known. Often there's a series of towns that are well known inside of a county. And if you're working at the county level, then your website needs to touch on keywords relating to the towns, and you need to know which ones are searched for more so you can make sure that you have the right amount of content for each one. Key attractions. So if you know that your museums or your historic buildings have search, you need to know which ones have the most search and exactly how many. In Asheville, it would be the Biltmore State would be number one. Grove Park Inn would be up there. The city building is really historic. There's a basilica that's really historic. And then we have additional attractions like our Arboretum and our Nature Center, which get a reasonable amount of search themselves. So we need to, if you're doing a strategy for example, for Asheville, you'd want to know what the volume of search is for each of those things, and what are the sub keywords that people look for within each of those attractions, so you can write the right blogs or articles or sub pages to support that. Next is assets. This could be your cultural assets, your things to do, your recreational assets, your entertainment options, and your key events. So you want to know, for instance, in Asheville, like you'd want to know if more people are searching for hiking or kayaking or tubing, because if there's a ton of search for tubing, you might need to create a whole bunch of content about that to rank well for it. Whereas if, on the other hand, if hiking was number one, you'd want to put more energy there. So this is really all about prioritization, knowing where to put your energy and what sections might not need to be built at all, or what can be just one simple page with a small amount of text because there's no search opportunity, versus something else maybe needing a bunch of 4 or 5 pages and a big part of your blogging strategy in order to make sure you're ranking for it long term. Regional terms, so this might be like in the Asheville area, it might be the Blue Ridge Mountains, Western North Carolina, the Smoky Mountains, the North Carolina Mountains. Those are different synonyms that describe the same area for the most part. Obviously, the different mountain ranges, some of them overlap, some of them are distinct, but they're all within an hour drive of here, and people are looking for a place to stay where they can access or get to those mountains. And they may choose Asheville, they may choose a smaller town farther or closer to those specific locations they're looking for. We want to know what the search volume, so we know how important they are for a site. And then local city terms. This could just be the most popular terms for your city name. So if you put in your city name in these keyword tools, it'll spit out all the different ways people search for that, and you can line the ones up that relate to tourism for your website. Some of them will be nothing to do with tourism, like civic questions or questions only locals have, whereas some will be very tourist focused. So website architecture, this is basically how you organize your website. There's a lot of consistency in how tourism websites are organized, and I think there's a best practice here, which I'm going to lay out here. This doesn't mean that you can't diverge from this, but this is my experience, and this is a good way to lay out a tourism website. So you want to have front and center, you want to have the things to do, the main attractions, which are usually a subsection of things to do, events, which would be any major events, and you have to decide how many you want to include, and how you want to treat different events, because there are probably some ones that are competing with each other, some that are maybe religiously based, some that are affiliated with nonprofits, some that are for-profit. You have to decide how you're going to handle them, but there should be an event section. Accommodations, which can also be called places to stay or something similar to that, and then restaurants or places to eat or food or culinary. You can choose different words to describe it, but there's that's something everyone's going to be looking for if they're visiting. And then we often see itineraries. These can be sample itineraries, or this can allow a user to tag certain features that they see on the site and build their own itinerary. Or we've done a few sites where there's a couple sample itineraries which you can choose, and then you can modify it by changing attractions or destinations within your itinerary, which is a really good strategy, I think. And then blog categories. We'll get more into that in the next slide, but you need to have we believe you need to have a blog or a section for new content to be added regularly that's more of the storytelling variety. And then a calendar of events. This is not always necessary, but most tourism websites have a calendar. And sometimes the calendar will be separate from the major events section. The major events might just be the top 10 or 20 events with a full page, whereas the calendar might be more just a lot of the smaller events without as much content. And it would also include those larger events as well, but might include a lot more that wouldn't get to that level of exposure and promotion. So blog categories, there's a lot of options for tourism websites for blog categories, but you can do audience-specific ones. So family would be one audience, adventure and outdoors would be one. There's often other ones, culinary or romantic. Those are other audiences you might want to target. Types of attractions, so you might have content that's related to museums or historical content, accommodations, breweries. So you could put your blogs into categories that are related to attractions. And most blogs have 4 to 15 different categories. So these are not distinct or independent, but this is just some examples of ideas that I see regularly, and we regularly do blog category creation or strategy for tourism websites. We've seen a lot of sites. Events, sample itineraries, so you could put a blog category called sample itinerary, and then write a series of blogs that are just defining different itineraries that you want people to be aware of. And those can be used for sharing on social media and email as well. Then you could have a category just for blogs that have video in them. So if people want to find the videos, they can click on the video category. And one blog post can have multiple tag categories. So you could have a family fun event blog with a video, and it might appear in all three categories. You might have one that's specific for blogs that have a lot of photography or slideshows in them. So this is just an example of some places to get you started. But if you have a couple of these subsections, pick the things that are most important from what differentiates your location. Pick your top categories of attractions, and then some or all of the other ones. You'll have a good basis for a blog, and then you want to later on decide how to create the content for the blog and how frequently you think is realistic. In some tourism destinations, the frequency changes throughout the year. So during the busier months, they might be blogging more, and in the slow months, often the winter time around here, the blogging pace slows down because there's not as much to talk about, and not as many people in town to really care about what you're talking about at that time of year. So here are some strategies for getting content written so that you don't have to put all the burden on your internal staff. So one is getting guest content from local partners or tourism businesses. So this can be challenging because there may be way more voices than you have room for, but you can work slowly to build relationships with good writers who have strong content to share, that are part of key partners or key organizations within your destination marketing organization membership or local business community, and then you can work your way up to having more than several of them kind of contributing either monthly or quarterly to diversify who's providing content, diversify the voice and language, and also to take the burden off your team. You can also accept press releases, and we often consult with tourism organizations to provide a training where they teach their members how to write press releases that can easily be incorporated into the blog of the tourism destination. So those press releases would have to be written fairly editorially with good storytelling, and not too overly promotional and also not overly dry. So somewhere in between where they're slightly promotional but not extreme, and not so just purely fact-based that they're not interesting. So that can be a good way. And when I previously worked at the Asheville CVB, we at that time we were publishing a lot of press releases on the website as blog posts. I would take them in and choose the ones that I thought were best and pitch them up to my boss and say, can I write something about this? And I would take the press release and I would just kind of massage it a little bit and write a little bit, maybe an intro specifically from the DMO's perspective, and maybe add hyperlinks and other things and some graphics, make it look better. But mostly just might take me only an hour to put together a blog from a press release. Guest content, this is similar to the first one, but you can actually have like guest writers who are covering certain tracks. So I know in Asheville they have some guest writers that do food, beer, outdoors, and they pay them a small amount of money to produce good content on a monthly or quarterly basis, to take the burden off the staff, use the budget in a wise way, support the local community of writers, and get a really good basic content for the site. So that sort of is another way of saying the same thing there. But then the last one not the last one, but the next one I want to talk about is interns. So if you have a strong local writing program within a college or university nearby, it's probably likely that you can get an intern, at least in the summertime, if not during the school year, to be writing blogs for your website. And a lot of interns are also great for doing video and photography and multimedia content for your site. And the last one is ghost blogging. Ghost blogging is a form of internal content development that leverages interviews with outside experts. So the process is to make a list of everything you want to cover, connect with potential interview subjects who know a lot about those topics. Ghostwriters should then do enough research to understand the topic and put together a series of 3 to 5 questions that can be answered 1 to 2 minutes each, with maybe a little bit more time for the more involved questions. Then you would interview the person and record it with a video recorder, either in person or over the phone. Then a 15-minute conversation is usually enough for about a 500 to 600 word long blog. Then you're going to have an intern, internal staff member, or outside vendor transcribe the recording. Then you edit that into a blog post, which usually doesn't take very long, less than an hour most of the time. And then you would share it with the interview subject to do a final fact check and make sure that they're okay with the way it's written, because sometimes it'll be published in their name or as an interview where you have a question from the organization and then answer from the subject. That's the most common way. But you also can do it as a way to create content that's coming out of the brand's voice, but you want to make sure you don't take advantage of your experts in the community by writing content that's basically their content without giving them credit. So it's a balancing act a little bit for some organizations. All right, moving on. Final thoughts on content. So most of our tourism organizations that we're working with are in the smaller category, and we really push them to try to get to 4 blogs a month. But that's difficult for some organizations. In other cases, if you have a bigger staff and a larger community, then 4 is probably not enough. You're not going to cover everything that's going on with 4. So you can go higher. You can go higher than 8, but we're mostly communicating here with small to mid-sized organizations. So 8's a good stretch goal for most organizations. That can be a combination of, republishing 2 press releases, having your members share 2 pieces of written content, having a couple community contributors who are contributing once a month, and so you might get 1 or 2 a month from that, and then writing 1 or 2 internally for your staff, either directly from research and interviews or through ghost blogging. And that can help you get to 6 to 8 if you can create all those different programs in parallel. Obviously, interns would help add to that. Other things could help add to it as well. So that's a note on that. And then events. So events within blogging content are an interesting challenge and opportunity. They're great for content for your monthly email and your social media because it's really relevant to what's happening currently. But when you create a blog post about an event, you can run into some problems. One is that once a piece of content is 6 to 8 months old, it's going to have some website authority. And so if you publish a brand new page about the 2018 summer event, if someone searches for that event, they're most likely to see the 2017 article first, which has incorrect information. So Google's getting better at not doing that, but it still happens fairly often, especially for more obscure events or smaller communities. So what you need to do is have a process in place to go back to your old content right when you're writing the new one. As soon as you publish the new one, go back to the old one and link it to the new one. You can also do things within your website to make sure that the old pages are no longer indexed by Google. That takes usually flipping a setting in the content management system like WordPress to say don't index this page anymore. You can do that a month or 2 before promoting the new event so that it won't show up in the search engines anymore. That can be good and bad though, because you might want the old one to show up as long as there's a clear link at the top to the newer page. So that people can find it really fast. And then quickly Google will replace the new one with the old one, for the old one I mean, once it's been indexed and starts to rank. So here's an example, sort of. I was actually talking yesterday with Mark Feil, who owns Romantic Asheville, and this is the top result for the Bigfoot Festival right now. He was telling me he's getting a ton of traffic for this festival to his website because the community where it's happening in Marion, North Carolina, hasn't put anything up about it, and the event organizer hasn't built a website. So the fact that he has a lot of authority, it looks like a couple of newspapers have covered a little bit about it, and then also another regional blog has covered it, but Mark's site has the most authority and probably the best piece of content, which adds up to equaling the top position. And he does some work with Marion County, or the county which Marion is in, and he does, and this is so, he recently told me he met with the organizer who was super happy with all the traffic and interest from the festival, all from Romantic Asheville, and the county was really happy because the page about the festival linked to other information about the county, like places to stay and restaurants. It was all part of a partnership that they had developed to produce content for the county. So overall, it's been a huge success, and this is an example of if you don't control the message, someone else will get a handle on it. And in this case, it's someone who's very authentic and good at communicating about events. But it could not be good if the only article from the newspaper had been a negative article. Then by not having content on the county website, they'd be in a bad position. All right, so moving on to the third section of the presentation. This is, in theory, the media section, where I could spend hours of time just talking about it. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to kind of go kind of quickly through this, because I think that some of the other nuggets I shared in the other sections before and after this are actually a little bit more actionable. I can't teach in 20 minutes the best practices for Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, but I can talk a little bit about some of the prioritizations and strategies that we're seeing work right now. So I'm going to talk about prioritization, some tactics for each one. I'll go really quickly through that, including content calendars. And then talk a little bit about assets. Social media really requires assets, including photography, video, and design. And if you don't have that, then it's going to be really hard to look really professional and see the results you'd want to see there. So we live in a world where there's dozens of social networks now, and you can't possibly manage all of them, so you have to choose. So we typically recommend that organizations only focus on 1 to 2 that they put most of their time into, and then 1 to 2 more that they put a smaller amount of time into, and ignore pretty much everything else. So we think Facebook is almost always the most important, with Instagram kind of catching up to a second place position in priority. Then Twitter and Pinterest are close for third. Some cases Pinterest is more important, other cases Twitter. If you're doing B2B events and a big PR push, then Twitter is going to be more important. If you have a lot of beautiful photography and a lot of wonderful scenery, then Pinterest is going to be more important. So for more industrial areas that have a lot of conferences and business events and maybe are kind of a center for government and business, then your Twitter is going to be more important. If you're very rural, out in the community with lots of visual assets like waterfalls, views, then Pinterest is going to be way more important. And so in either case, Facebook and Instagram are going to be 1 and 2, in whichever order makes sense for your staff. And then number 3 would be one of the last 2. And there's a chance that you might throw out either Pinterest or Twitter if it doesn't make sense. So you can end up with just 3 or all 4. Some best practices. Here's an area, like I said, where I could spend all day, and I don't have that kind of time. So I'm only going to spend a few minutes on each one. But for Facebook, you want to post. We used to recommend 5 to 8 posts a week. We're dropping back now to a little bit less because organic reach is going down. So you want to put more energy into good quality content and a little bit of more budget into boosting or promoting those pieces of content. And if you do too much content, that's going to be hard on time and resources. So I think it's possible to get back to like 3 or 4 posts a week if they're all really good, and have a better Facebook page with more engagement than if you were trying to go with 2 or 3 posts a day, which is going to be hard to create good quality, consistent, highly valuable content that often. You want to be responsive to both comments and messages. 1 to 2 hours during the business day is ideal. That may not be possible for a small organization where the person doing Facebook is also doing a lot of other things. That might only be once a day in that case, but if you can have someone who's on it quite a bit, checking on their phone if possible, that's helpful. Try to always include written content, not just a photo. If you do a photo, put some text with it. Try to link to your own website as much as you can. So publishing things on your site first and then sharing them on social media will have a better impact on your overall tourism strategy than if you just post stuff only on social networks alone. The image size you want to work with is 1200 by 628, which is the ideal size for ads and Facebook images. 1200 pixels by 628 pixels. You want to make sure that your articles and your website pages use the Facebook Open Graph, which is what allows, it's usually a plugin on your website that allows you to set which photo, what title comes up in Facebook and other search engines when your content is shared. If you don't set that, it might be the wrong image, or it might look unprofessional. It might be like a really blurry version of your logo or something. You want to use the Open Graph to tell specifically a good looking image to show up. Video, you want to use video on Facebook. You want videos to be under 3 minutes for static videos, which are those that are shared directly, and then for live videos you want to try to go for 10 to 20 minutes if you can. Not everyone does live video, but it's really great for tourism, for covering events, for covering storytelling, for covering performers, street art, any sort of larger expo or festival happening. It's a great way to cover that sort of thing. So Facebook is number 1, like I said. Instagram number 2. Instagram image best practices are 1080 pixels times 1080 pixels is a square image, about similar to the same long side as the Facebook, but more of a square. So videos are good on Instagram. Usually go with shorter videos. Instagram stories are really picking up steam right now, so try to use that. It's possible to repurpose content across Facebook and Instagram, but the strategy is a little bit different. You want to use more hashtags, which are just like keywords with a hash symbol in front of them for Instagram, whereas Facebook, they're much less important. In fact, we don't recommend using them at all on Facebook. So Twitter, you have a short character limit, 280 characters now. So there you're going to have to keep yourself brief. You can still use photos at 1024 by 512 pixels. You can do up to 5 megabyte images. So Twitter's best for building relationships, like connecting with influencers or connecting with journalists or other businesses than considering moving their tourism business to your area. It's a little bit less effective for communicating directly with your people who haven't visited yet, but if someone's in town and Twitter's their favorite social media, then they might be asking questions about your town on Twitter, and if you want to provide customer service for visitors, that can be a great place to do it. And then Pinterest, Pinterest for tourism, you want to just create really well organized Pinterest boards of good imagery in the different categories. You can follow the same categories as your blog. So you can have categories for outdoor, categories for museums, attractions, accommodations, and put similar images in those categories. You usually don't have to do much active management. There's not a whole lot of customer service happening, not a whole lot of comments. It's more about putting out a lot of good imagery. So when people are looking for things, they find your images and then click on them into your website. So going to creative assets, I think I forgot to add a slide for content calendars, so I'm going to mention that real quickly. We think it's really important when you're doing professional social media to have a calendar. We use Google spreadsheets for our calendars, and we make calendars that list all of the social platforms we're using across the top and the days down the left-hand side. We put in our text content and links to our images or links to our image folder for the images we want to use. So then we have one place where everything can be reviewed by the editors or the executives and approved before it goes up. So there's never a quick situation where something gets posted that was incorrect or it jumps the gun on an important announcement or things like that. Have the checks and balances in place. But as far as creative assets, you need to have a strategy in place to get photography regularly. So that that can be difficult for some organizations, but it's really important. You need to do the same for video and design graphics. So as far as pace, you need photography every single week. You can do a couple of really big photo shoots every year, maybe seasonally, or you can have someone who can go out on a regular basis. Video, it depends on your capacity and your bandwidth and the strengths and weaknesses of your team. If you have someone who's really good at video, then you can do regular video or do live video. If you don't, then you might have to just do a few produced videos per year, or as campaigns or kind of brand positioning pieces. Design graphics are nice for Facebook ads and Instagram, and so it's good to have someone on your staff or as a subcontractor a few hours a month who can do graphics. We find that it takes about an hour to put together a good graphic for social media. So if you want to do one a week, it might be 4 hours to 6 hours a month. If you want to do several a week, you might need 10 hours a month contracted or 10 hours of someone's time on your staff to do it. Next is the fourth section for digital advertising. So let me get to that section in my notes real quick. Getting toward the end here. So digital advertising, mostly we're talking here about Facebook and Google ads. So these are the top two types of digital advertising that most tourism organizations need to be considering or hopefully are already doing. And we'll just talk about some of the best practices here to make sure you're doing them in an effective way. So for Facebook, there are about 4 or 5 types of advertising that we think is important that tourism organizations should be utilizing. One is boosting events. This is either boosting a Facebook event page or boosting a blog post as a piece of content on Facebook that links back to a page about the event on your website. You can do a mixture of both, and I think it's good to pick anywhere between 1 and 4 events per month to promote. So in some areas that's going to be hard to find, one really good event every single month. In other areas it might be hard to narrow it down to 4, depending on the time of year, depending on how much is going on in your region, how big of a region you're covering, all these factors. So, for example, we work with Cherokee, North Carolina, with their government, the tribal government, in the tourism office. We do the social media, and they have a lot of events. They have a lot of small, mid-sized events that are put on by different groups, and then they have tourism partners, nonprofits that put on bigger events, and then they have the casino, which puts on 2 major concerts per month. We mostly focus on the largest events of the partners. So these are like Native American tribal festivals, fishing tournaments that are revenue generators for them, cultural and performing arts events. And so that's usually about 1 or 2 a month. So we actually write a blog about each one. We put a Facebook ad together for them. We're not currently doing Facebook event pages, but we might be adding that to our contract next year. And then the website traffic ads. This is when the piece of content doesn't appear on your Facebook page, and its primary objective is to drive website clicks to your site. So this can be for seasonal campaigns, for major announcements, for branded campaigns. You can run these for anywhere between 1 week and several months at a time for one piece of creative. And so we think most businesses or most tourism organizations should have at least 1 traffic ad running at any given time, and up to 2 or 3 depending on your budget and the size of your organization. Then you can, similar to a traffic ad, you can put money behind boosting a post on your organic Facebook wall. This will help you get more likes, comments, and shares. It doesn't necessarily drive more clicks. It does get some more clicks, but it's more actually optimized for people who engage with content versus click on content. So that's the difference between traffic ads and post ads. The post ads help you get your numbers up on the page, whereas the traffic ads help you get your numbers up on your website. And then account growth. This is where you put ads that are designed to build the number of followers you have. And this is a specific type of ad where the main call to action people click on is a like button that makes them like your page. Or they can click on the link to go to the page and view it, where they also have the option to like it. So there's no website traffic from these ads. There's not much engagement on these ads. It's purely to try to get the page to be larger. And then you can be speaking to more people organically and targeting more people with your boosted content. So that's it for Facebook ads. That's my strategy. Going back real quick, I'm picking up my pace a little bit because I want to make sure I get done with everything, but we're getting close to the end. So I think it's relatively reasonable to split your budget about equally between these 4 areas. If there's one area that might need to get more support these days, it's the number 3, post engagement. So you could do a third there and split the others up a little bit differently. But if you had $1,000 a month, it would be reasonable to put $250 into each. If you have $10,000 a month, then you can get more nuance with your breakdown. But you can go with something like maybe $1,000 for the first category, $2,000 for the second category, $4,000 for the third, and whatever's left for the account growth. On account growth, you can expect to get more new fans anywhere between 25 cents and $1 each. So $1,000 a month there would get you anywhere between 1,000 and about 4,000 new Facebook fans every month. So Google Ads. Google Ads, we mostly focus on text ads. You can also do banner ads, but those are good for branding. They're not that great for actual really high quality traffic. You get better quality traffic from search text ads, and you can break those down into several categories that are based on your keyword research and your website architecture, but there's often campaigns running for general visitor interest, regional terms, key activities, events, and educational topics. Educational topics are usually the cheapest per click, so history, art, culture, those can usually get you the cheapest clicks to your site. They're also not always people who are looking to come and visit. There may be people, college students, or just people looking to learn more about something where they're not actually looking to make a travel decision. General visitor interest can be things like things to do, activities, people searching for those kind of keywords. Regional terms can just be like visiting Asheville or Asheville travel. Key activities might be hiking near Asheville, swimming holes, event festivals, restaurants, things like that. Those are kind of overlapping a little bit with the general one. And then local events could be specific events. And then education topics, like I said, could be someone looking for a specific artist or a building or something like that, a monument maybe. So the best practice for cost per click is to try to get it under $1.50 per click. Sometimes it's possible to go pretty far under this, like even down to 50 cents or 25 cents in some cases. But if you're over $1.50, you're wasting your money, honestly. And you need to try to refine your bids and your keywords to get a lower click, lower cost. So we do some Google ads for the Blue Ridge Heritage area, and here's a list of their campaigns. So they have a bunch of campaigns around different things, like I kind of talked about before. Events, they have major attractions, they have so they have the Parkway, which is one major attraction. They also have another campaign for the smaller attractions. They have a heritage trail. They have a music website separately. They have all the music styles in that website for the region. It's like old-timey music, bluegrass, music festivals, stuff like that. They have a small towns one for all the regional communities that they support. So these are the way we break down the high-level campaigns, and then within one campaign, there's different ad groups. So within the Blue Ridge Parkway campaign, there's mountain keywords, specific Parkway keywords, and then fall color as its own campaign that we turn on and off depending on the time of year. So here's another kind of industry graph, and you can see at the bottom, this pink one at the end is a pink-purple kind of blend here is travel and hospitality, and you can see it's actually about the lowest cost per click at $1.50. There's only two that are lower. Now, if that feels high to you, it is relatively high. I think you can get down into the 50-cent range if you're really smart with your strategy. This keeps going up though, so and that may not be true anymore. It may be more like $1 now, but it depends on your region, how competitive your words are, and how many other businesses within your region are actually also trying to run the same ads and write the same keywords. So this is the last section, and we're right on time, about 12 minutes left. I hope to wrap with a few minutes for your questions, but partnerships. So partnerships, in my opinion, for tourism, they should include contests and sweepstakes, and then sharing content from key partners, whether that's guest content or just sharing their Facebook posts, to hopefully have them do the same for you. So I'm going to focus most of my conversation here on contests. So personally, I absolutely love tourism contests as a social media strategy and also as an email acquisition. So here's one we did a few years ago for Visit Cherokee. As you can see, this was July of 2016, so it's been over 2 years now. But we partnered with the museum, the Museum of the Cherokee Indian, the golf course, the village tour, and the performing arts, which is called Unto These Hills, and the casino, which has the biggest hotel and multiple restaurants. And so we had 2 nights at the hotel, a couple restaurant vouchers, tickets to the show, tickets to the museum, tickets to the village, and 2 rounds of golf at the golf course, plus a fishing pass, a piece of local art. And so overall, it was a pretty nice package, and all the different partners, the museum, the golf course, they all shared this. The casino shared it several times. It was over the course of a month. So people could enter a simple contact form, and we got 15,000 entries. So that's 15,000 new email addresses that we didn't have before to do follow-up campaigns with and just a ton, over almost 500,000 people saw the posts. So we posted across the partners in our own page, or the client's page, and we've seen this kind of results over and over again. And they spent, I think, about $3,000 to $4,000 on the ads and everything involved with the campaign. They got everything donated that was in the package. We recently did one for a bed and breakfast out in Swain County, North Carolina, and that one we spent about $400 and got 3,000 entries, which was very successful. I've seen it for big festivals. I've done one that got 22,000 emails with a similar package to this, a $4,000 value package, and we spent about $3,000 to $4,000 in advertising for that one as well. So that's a pretty good, almost 10 emails for every dollar is what we're seeing for most of these. That'll probably go down over time, but that is pretty much what we've seen the last 3 years. So we have 8 minutes left. I'm about to open up for questions, but before I do that, I just want to let everyone know we do general strategy webinars every single month on the first Wednesday. We'll let you know about those. You can sign up for those on our website. There'll be a link in the PowerPoint when you get it. We're also going to launch an Introduction to Tourism Marketing course, which is a 3-month course based on the outline of this webinar. So it's got about 20 different videos in it. Each one are between 5 and 20 minutes long, with more tactical, strategic, and examples of how to do everything we've talked about today. And the full price for that is going to be $79 a month, but we're going to be sharing out discounts for the people who participated in our webinars or come to our events before. We also have a 2-day conference happening this fall in Asheville, November 13th and 14th, which is a Tuesday and a Wednesday, middle of November. The tickets are on sale. We've already sold about 40 tickets to that event. We have about 80 total to sell. So it's an interactive workshop format with 2 to 3 classes happening every hour for 2 days. It's a day and a half, actually. The second day comes off around 3 o'clock or 2:30. Current price is $300 per person single tickets, or $350 per ticket for groups. We've sold a lot of group tickets last month, I think about 20 of them. So yeah, we hope you can join us for that. If you have any questions about any of those 3 things, please let me know, and you can contact me via email, or you can chat in right now. We have about 8 minutes left, and I hope that some of you have specific questions. We always say that there's no thing as a bad question. So if you're contemplating a website redesign, worrying about your website architecture or keywords, let me know. If you're worried about your social strategy and you have a question about how often to post or what type of content or how to work with a partner, that's all fair game. If you have questions about search engine optimization, I'm an open book, and I see there's still 15 people on the call. So if I'd love to hear at least a couple of questions. If you need to get back to your day, that's totally fine as well. We all have busy schedules. So I love questions and love to hear from you guys. So I got a question from Jackie. She says, the partnership marketing, who is the bank? How is the booking handled? What exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean like how does the money distributed for a partnership strategy where multiple people are spending advertising? Or do you mean like how is if the contest has a accommodation prize, like how is that handled? I can talk about both of those things if you want. As far as partnership campaigns, okay, yeah. So usually what happens is the DMO, the Destination Marketing Organization, collects all the things that are vouchers, like tickets to events. There's gonna be gift certificates. Those can be these are usually some form of gift certificate that you could otherwise buy from the organization, or if it's if like the contest is a specific weekend or specific dates, you can go ahead and buy the tickets. or get them donated by the organization. Then you can mail the person most of everything that they booked. Then you want to put them in contact with the booking person, the reservations person at the accommodation that was providing the accommodation. So with the hotel, we put, with the casino hotel, we put the winner in touch with someone in the concierge office to get them registered, and told them, made an introduction via email, set up a phone call, they called in, they gave them their information, name, whatever they needed to book it. So that's pretty common. We do them for this cruise conference we work on. We do all the marketing for the cruise. So we gather all the items that their person's going to win, and actually we give them most of them on board. So we cut together like a gift bag of signed books and gift certificates for online courses and things like that. And then the main prize is the actual registration. So we put the person in touch with the operations person at the event business that runs the conference, and they just gather the name, passport number, social security number, and everything, and just do a booking manually for them. As far as money, before I get to Tina's question, I'm going to do money. If you're doing a partnership strategy where you're asking partners to do paid promotions, and you're providing them money, you can cut them a check, or you can use PayPal if they have a PayPal account, or Venmo, or any sort of online money account. You can send them the money through that. Those are the two strategies we've seen. Also, if you have an open financial relationship with them, it could just become part of an invoice that you have between the organizations. But usually PayPal is the easiest if they have a way to receive money that way. Or if they have a way you can make a donation on their website, you can just donate the money through your company credit card or bank account, and then keep track of it as a part of the campaign. So moving on to Tina's question, in AdWords, is it necessary to always have the destination's brand in the keywords? No, absolutely not. It's nice to have it in the copy of the ad. So you can have an ad for, let's say, for example, someone's looking for Asheville restaurants. Then you'd want, like, the brand for the restaurant community in Asheville is like Foodtopia. So you'd probably want like Foodtopia. Visit the 120 plus independent fine dining and independent restaurants in Asheville, North Carolina, and then the link would be explore Asheville /Foodtopia. So Foodtopia, you wouldn't Foodtopia, you might have an ad, a keyword for Foodtopia and Asheville restaurants, but you might also have like a specific chef's name, some restaurant names, things like that. So yeah, you definitely don't have to have the brand. That you can get in trouble if you use trademarked brands that are not your own in your ads. So I'm trying to think of a good example. There was some organization that branded like Blue Ridge Getaways or something like that. It was the name of a company, right? Blue Ridge Getaways. Blue Ridge Rafting Company branded trademark Blue Ridge Rafting. So sometimes you can get in trouble with keywords that seem generic like that in your ads, where Google will tell you to stop running the ads. But you won't get penalized or fined. They might just pause them, or they might give you a warning and tell you what to remove. They usually show up as a list. You can usually click one button and remove them all at once. They often will pause your ads until those are removed. There's some, restricted keywords, but they usually don't interfere with tourism strategies. They interfere more with like medical strategies, legal like banking, finance. But I've never seen a restricted keyword other than a branded, trademarked word coming up in tourism. So we got about 2 or 3 minutes left. Do we have any other questions? Absolutely, Tina. Happy to help. Got time for one more, I think, if anyone's got something on their mind. All right, well, please feel free to email me if you have any questions. We're going to be doing another tourism webinar in the next month or two. It may not be until October at this pace, but we are going to be launching our introduction course. We'll send out some information about that in the next few weeks, and we really hope that some of you will come in and check that out we're going to have a really great introductory offer for because it's just getting started and we want to get some feedback and get some active students taking part. So hope you all have a wonderful day. Yeah, and thanks all for being here, as Jenna has said in the chat. Look forward to talking to you all again in the next few months, and hope to see some of you in Asheville in November. We're going to have a really great conference. Thank you all for your time, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye.